Hello, I'm Dr. Eric Allen Williams, affectionately known as Dr. E. Yes, you can call me Dr. E. Hopefully, by the end of today's session, you will be strengthened, empowered, and able to execute the strategies presented. Thank you so much for joining us, and grab a cup of coffee. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to IEP Basics Module 1. And I'm going to go ahead on and share my screen with you. All right, we're going to go into presentation mode, and we'll tell you later how you can access the actual slides and documents that we'll discuss on today. And again, welcome to IEP Basics Module 1, the IEP overview. And of course, I am your host, Dr. Eric Allen Williams. I want you to take a look at these pictures right here. And I want you to think about which picture is most different and why. I'm gonna give you a few seconds. Which picture is most different and why? Which picture is most different and why? All right, some of you may have looked at this picture and said, well, the young man that's opening the book, that will probably be the one that's most different. But when it comes to IEP basics, I wanted to tell you this, that all of these students are just alike. They deserve, according to FAPE, a high quality education. Each student in these pictures, regardless of their exceptionality or disability, deserve a high quality education. Now, what will be our objectives on today? First, we will talk about the purpose of the IEP, the educational benefit. We will look at the participants, their roles and responsibilities, planning, the steps in the IEP process. Then we'll look at the pertinent forms, because in special education, we have a lot of forms. And so we're not gonna target each form, but we will highlight the ones that are critical to your work at the beginning of the school year. Also, we'll look at the practice. We'll look at the curriculum, data, standards, and supports, things that will help us be successful with the implementation of the IEP. So we have the 5 Ps of the IEP. Doesn't have a ring to it, the 5 Ps of the IEP. All right, you can access our slides and documents, a few of the documents, at our IEP training Google Classroom. I encourage you to go ahead on and join the IEP Google Classroom. Take a picture of this, of the code. Take a picture of the code so you can have that. I want you to go into your Google Drive. For those of you who are new teachers, you may not have that Google Drive as of yet, but once you get your Caddo email and you get your access, you'll be able to obtain this presentation, the slides as well. But you can keep this, you can archive this for later. Also, some of the documents that we will look at will come from DOEC instruction, and you can Google that website. Don't Google it now, we'll go there later. But DOEC instruction, and that is the home of all of your IEP forms that you use for IEP planning and implementation from the district. Those forms, I just wanted to let you know, those forms will be updated after July 1, so you can go back to this website and revisit it. Some of the forms that we're used today were from the last school year, so some of them will be updated. So you can go to this website, DOEC instruction, just Google it to obtain those documents. So let's look at the purpose of the IEP, because whenever we are embarking up on a work or journey, we need to know the purpose of what we are doing. This portion will feature defining IEPs, establishing the purpose, and recognizing some of the roles of those team members that are involved in it. Okay, let's look at what is an IEP. I want you to read that for just a moment. What is an IEP? Now we have, I'm gonna give you some more time to read it. I don't want to rush you. Okay. When we look at the IEP, we have two components of it. We have the reasonable learning goals. We have to set those goals, and also the services that the school district will provide. So we have the goals that we set, which are according to that, which are aligned to the curriculum, and based on data that we obtain from the students, and also the goals are set or aligned also with the standards. And then we have the services that the school district will provide. So we have to be very strategic and be aware of what we are placing on the IEP. Now, why do we have an IEP? Because we don't just meet just to meet. There is a purpose. We know that the IEP is required by law, but the IEP is much more than that. It's a program, it's a plan, and it's the roadmap to the future for students with disabilities. So we look at what is the educational benefit of the IEP. It provides that roadmap again for that student. When we look at the Individual Disabilities Education Act, which is IDEA, why do we have this? We want to meet the child's need so that they can be successful in the general education curriculum. When you think about IEPs, I want you to think about LRE, least restrictive environment. LRE, least restrictive environment. We want all children to get as much access to the regular ed curriculum as possible. It'll be based on their exceptionalities and that sort, but we want them to be exposed and to have interaction with those in the general education environment. So let's look at the participants, because this session we will talk about those roles. This part of the portion, we will talk about the roles and responsibilities of the participants. Why have an IEP team? Why can't we just go and make these decisions on our own? Having an IEP team helps people come together who have knowledge about a student's educational program, okay? It includes family members, also the student, educators. The team works together at the IEP meeting to plan a program to meet the individual needs of a specific student with disabilities. So we want to meet their needs. We don't write an IEP to make it comfortable for adults. We make it conducive for that student to be successful in the general education curriculum. Now let's look at some of the IEP team members. We have parents. Then you have the officially designated representative, which is called the ODR. We have a lot of acronyms, but ODR simply means that that person is designated from at the school site. Usually it's a principal or assistant principal. They are designated to facilitate the IEP team meeting. Then you have the general education teachers. And when you have an IEP meeting and you ask general education teachers to come, you want teachers who are involved in that core curriculum. Some students are in a classroom or in a self-contained IEP classroom all day. So you want to pull teachers or educators who have a role in their educational process. So think about those core contents, reading and math. And then you have some students, they only go out for, we're talking about the we're talking about the Leap Connect students, but today we're talking about the non-Leap Connect. But for students who have severe disabilities, they may have to pull from the enrichment teachers. So we have the general education teachers, then we have the special education teacher, which is you. You are one of the biggest advocates for the students on campus. Then we have the student need to be involved in that. Yes, we want to ask the parent, do you want your child to participate in this meeting? And the parent can opt to not have the student there, but we need to, that student needs to be involved in that process to some degree. And that will be based on age and exceptionalities, how much involvement they have in that process. Then we have the evaluation representative, and we also call them the pupil appraisal person. And usually they are involved in the initial IEP when that student is designated with their exceptionality. And then we have other individuals from the district and maybe outside the district but there are legalities in place. And please talk to your lead teacher, who is your first line of defense at the school site, your lead teacher. And then next you have your instructional specialist, which is a district person assigned to your school to assist you. So you have your lead teacher, then you have your instructional specialist. And you'll find that when you are assigned to your school, who those individuals are. Additional IEP preparation. We have the written notice, which we'll talk about. The notices, we have 3 notices that we'll send out for the IEP within 10 days. I want you to think about that and say this. 3 notices, 10 days. 3 notices, 10 days. So you'll send out 3 notices to the parent within 10 days. And think about 10 business days. So Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday. You don't want to send a notice out on a Friday because you may or may not get it. Even with sending it within those business days, you may not get it. But you have a better outcome if you send it within that Monday through Friday window. Then there's privacy. We need to make sure that we take care of and take great care in discussing students' information because it's very sensitive. So we have to not have outside conversations on the breezeway, outside the classroom. We need to make sure that it's in a safe environment when that information is disseminated. And we need to get member involvement. Everybody that's a part of the IEP team, it's not a solo project. All of the team members need to be a part of that process. Now, let's talk about the planning part of IEPs, which is probably the most essential area because we have to do some effective planning. If we create a well-designed IEP, there will be no need to have numerous amendments because we can amend the IEP if we need to, but we need to take great care in planning for the IEP so that we can have one that's conducive for that student and that student can be successful in their classroom environment. Let's keep in mind that a good IEP it's a living document. It's a living document. I want you to say that. Living document. It's not an annual permission slip. I love that. It's not an annual permission slip to sign and forget. When we receive the IEP, when we write it, we need to make sure that we look at it constantly, that we constantly look at it to make sure that we are documenting progress towards those IEP goals. And we'll talk about IEP goals later. But we need to look to see if that student is really being successful. Are there any gaps? Are there any things that we need to reconsider? So we can always reconvene to discuss that if our student is continuing to, if their progress is decreasing, we need to make sure that we're aware of what's causing that decrease and look at that. So we look at the process, the planning part of the IEP. Then we look at the product, the individualized plan. So we look at the process, which is the planning to determine what's needed. And then we look at the product, the individualized plan, to see if it's reasonably calculated to meet those students' needs. I want to make sure that we spend great care in planning. And then ultimately, what is the ultimate outcome? We want that student with disabilities to promote and to graduate and to lead a successful life post high school. Okay, so we want to make sure that that student is successful, and the IEP helps us to chart that success for that student. What are some of the qualities of an IEP? It results in educational benefits, so that student can be successful. Also, it's connected to state standards. Our standards are there for a reason. So we want to visit those standards to see what particular grade level, because of course, we are addressing non-LEAP Connect students that do not have a severe disability. So if we're targeting a student who has an exceptionality, who's on a diploma track to receive that high school diploma in a non-LEAP Connect environment, meaning they're using the statewide standards, they're required to take high stakes testing. We want our instruction to be aligned with standards. We want our IEP to be aligned with standards. And then we test the students. We do our benchmark testing throughout the year. We test them in the fall, winter, and spring. Also, we do progress monitoring to see if they are meeting those standards. So we also have to be knowledgeable of the standards and also knowledgeable of the curriculum. So it requires us to be knowledgeable of the standards and the curriculum so that we can have effective instructional practices. And of course, again, we've said this before, that the IEP is a living document, okay? We don't write it and put it in the vault, but we constantly look at it to assess if our student is really succeeding and moving towards achieving those goals. Pertinent forms. Which documents do I use? There are a lot of documents associated with IEPs. And again, we talked earlier about going to DOEC instruction. You can Google DOEC instruction. That's the Department of Exceptional Children Instruction. If you Google that, you can go and access these forms. And we're going to go there in just a minute, but I want to tell you where they are. So one of the first forms that you'll see is the data sheet. And I didn't put that on here because I didn't want to overwhelm you. I want to give you just a little bit of what you will need. So I am going to go to DOEC, the DOEC website right now. Okay. We're going to type in DOEC instruction, and it's probably there because I've used it a million times. Okay. DOEC instruction. So we're going to go to, and you can see it right here. You see there's a table of contents, there's a calendar, administration, IEP information. I want to show you this just real quickly. If you want to go and start reading this prior to the school beginning, you can look at some information there regarding IEPs. The IEP timelines, how you write your IEPs, when do they need to be turned in? This will change. This is 2019, 2020. But this will change after July 1. You'll see the updated. You'll also see how to prepare for an IEP. We won't cover all of these in the sessions. We'll have some more sessions in the fall, but I wanted to show you where you can start planning for the fall, where you can start reading about all this information. But I wanted to show you the forms that you will use. One of the first ones you'll see is the class data sheet right here, class data sheet. Why is this sheet important? It's a document that shows you what students you have and where they are in exceptionalities. So it gives a snapshot of all the students in your class. It shows their exceptionality, how many minutes, because each special education student has a number of minutes. So here are the instructions, and here is the sheet, okay, the instructions. And now I'm clicking on the sheet so you can see how it looks, because I think it'll make more sense to you if you notice what it is. So let's see, we're going to expand this. Let's see, we're going to zoom in a little bit more. Okay. Yes, we zoomed in some a little bit because I wanted you to be able to see it, and still the writing. Okay. All right, you can see a little bit of it right here. You have the dates. Okay, let's see if we can. No, we won't be able to open it right now. Let's see. Okay, so you can look at a little bit of it here. Let's see, can I expand it some more so you can, I'm trying to get it as, okay, I think we can see it a little bit better now there, okay. All right, so let's look at this. Here are the dates, the due dates for your data sheets. So one of the biggest hindrances to being successful for a special education teacher is planning and having a calendar. So when you receive this sheet in the fall, I want you to pencil in and put these dates in right here for your class data sheet. This will be one of the first sheets that you'll see for your students. It'll have what type of teacher, what type of classroom, inclusion, resource, self-contained, and most of you will probably be inclusion or resource. And inclusion is just a portion of the day. They go out for most of go to the regular ed setting. Resource is like a hybrid. You're in maybe for half of the day in the special education classroom, and then you go out to the regular class for maybe the other half, and then self-contained is all day in a self-contained class. So you have here the exceptionalities, low incidence, students with significant disabilities, you would check that off there. You have emotionally disturbed, hard of hearing, autism, moderate, severe. Moderate and severe are some of those severe, of course, severe is a severe disability. And then here you have your codes for those exceptionalities, and that's the exceptionality that's attached to your student. And you'll receive an IEP folder that has the evaluation, and the evaluation determines that exceptionality. Then you'll put your paraprofessionals information, your student's name. If we go down here, you'll be assigned, you may, depends on your school site, if you have a para in your room that's assigned to you, or you might have one that comes in portion of the day. Your school site will determine what para information, or do you have a para, that information will go in that section. You'll put your student's name here, EXC6. I want you to look at that right there, EXC6. That's when a student enters special education. It's like, I call it the special education passport. So every child that's in special education in every classroom, it alerts the district where in the state, where that student is and what classroom. So every time a child, if they move from one teacher to another, if they move from one school to the next, they will use that EXC6. And then we have the Act 833, and that's promotion based on an IEP team decision. And so you would check to see if they have that. And their unique ID, that's the number that's associated. It's not a social security, but it's a number that's attached to that student. Then you have the grade, and then you have other information right there. But I just wanted to show you, this will be one of the first forms, documents that you'll see that you'll have to complete for each of your students, and your lead teacher will assist you with that. All right, we went there. So let's go back to our forms. Now let's go to the record of access. When you receive your IEP folder, in the first pocket, and I know this is a lot to grab on today, but we will have future sessions in the fall to assist you with this, but this is just an overview. So we go to the record of access. This is a form that people from the district will sign in when they pick up your IEP folder for your student. Their name will go here. Of course, they need to have a district badge. So you need to look at that. If you're unsure, always reach out to your lead teacher. They will put their name here. They'll have a district badge, their name, position, date, reason for review in school. And whenever you do a comprehensive review of your IEP, which will be 4 times a year, you also put your name and position and when you review that IEP, right? So let's log out of that. And on the data sheet, let's go back to our presentation. So I want you to also look at the IEP folder checklist, IEP folder organization checklist. Let's see if we have it here. No, I have it right here. Okay, let's go back here and we can see if we can go back to our presentation. To make sure you all get that. Here it is, y'all. I'm sorry, I overlooked it. Okay, here's your IEP folder. This is your IEP folder checklist. This lets you know how your IEP, so in pocket, you're gonna have a folder that you'll receive for each student, and it'll have pockets in it, okay? And you complete this at the beginning of the year, then you have first 9 weeks, second 9 weeks, third 9 weeks, fourth 9 weeks. And you check it those 5 times to make sure that everything in it is correct and that it's up to date. Some students are mobile and they move to various schools throughout the year based on certain conditions in their home. So whenever the student moves, the IEP goes with them. So we need to make sure that all that information is correct. So you have pocket 1, we talked about the record of access. Then pocket 2 will have the actual IEP in it. You have your GSI page. We'll talk about that later. Your contact form, which is what we use to document contact with the parents. We'll talk about that in the fall. but we have 1, 2, 3, you have about 8 pockets of information. This is how you know what goes in each pocket. So when you open up your IEP folder, you will look at the IEP folder organizational checklist to determine that, where those documents go, okay? Then we have our IEP compliance checklist, and this is one of the most important forms. I can't stress enough how important this form is. The IEP compliance checklist shows you exactly how to create the IEP, exactly what goes on the IEP to make sure that you create an A+ IEP. If you follow this step by step, you will make your IEPs will be absolutely phenomenal if you follow this as you write, okay? So you have you'll put the student's name, the school, the state ID. Remember we talked about that unique ID? You would put it there, not the social security number, but the ID, date of birth, and meeting date of the IEP. And you will turn this in when you write your IEP and create it, you will turn this in, you will attach it to the top of that IEP. So you will close out old IEP goals. Say, for instance, this is we reconvene. Every student gets a new IEP once a year. We can amend it many times, but every year we do an annual IEP review. So we have to close out the old to move to the new. So we have to close out the old to write the new goals for that student. So this is the IEP compliance. It's making sure that we're writing everything is in order. So we're going to dive into the general student information page on today. The information here, I'll show you what that is. You have the transition. This is for students who are 14 and up, and that date and those timelines kind of change based on where the age of the student. So the transition part right here, those are those vocational goals that the student is moving towards achieving. So that's for our older population. And here you have general student information pages for everyone. It gives you exactly what it says, general information about the student. And then we move into the actual instructional plan pages. These are the goals for the student. It tells you exactly what you need. And we're in session 1 today. In session 2, we'll talk about the instructional plan pages, but today we're going to concentrate on the general student information page. But this is your IEP compliance checklist, okay? There are a lot of forms, but those are basically the ones you'll need starting at the beginning of the year. Then you have your health screening form, okay? When you look at the forms, you have the directions and the form there. So if you're not sure what to put on there or what goes on there, always look at the directions. Go read the directions first, and then you have the form there, okay? So the health screening form, this lets us know exactly where our students are health-wise. And this is something that we complete at the beginning of the school year to see, because at the conclusion, at the end of last school year, some health issues may have changed. So we want to complete this with the parent. Make sure you complete this with the parent. They need to have their medications ready. If you're going to complete this, make sure that you have this form with you and talk to your parents and go over this form with them. You put the student information name, you ask the questions right here. If all the questions are no, you ask them things such as, do they experience any allergic reactions? Do they have a current medical diagnosis? You're going to ask them all these questions, okay? If all the questions are no, then we're good to go. We can file this in our IEP folder. If we have a yes, then an alarm should go off we need to see if there's any additional information that we need. If there's additional medical information, then we'll need to request a form from the doctor, and we'll show you that form in the fall. I don't want to overwhelm you with a lot of forms, but this form is important, and there's an additional form that I will show you that in the fall that will accompany this if that student needs information from the doctor. There's if they need medical information from the doctor, there's a legal form that the parent must fill out for that doctor so that they can release the information. It's a release of information form for the district, okay? All right? So that's one of the forms that you'll need. So I want to show you just a few. Here's that form right here. I'm not gonna go over it, I just wanted to show you because this is a release of confidential information. So the parent will have to sign this, you will have to witness it. On the health screening form, they don't have to necessarily sign that, but on this form, they will have to sign this because they will need to release that information to Caddo. And this is the authorization for release of confidential information, right? I know we don't have a lot of activities and this is not necessarily fun, but this is things that you need to know. So, but we do, I wanted to make it a little bit engaging. So we're gonna go back to our presentation mode. And I want you to, based on what we just talked about a few minutes ago, I want you to look at this, okay? Which form is used to keep a log of district personnel who review the IEP folder? I want you to see if you remember what we just talked about. I wanted to add just a few, make it fun, just a little bit. So which form is used to keep a log of district personnel who review the IEP folder, right? If you said the record of access, you get a reward. And your reward is you get to work for Caddo. Yes, I'm just joking with you. Yes, we're in the best district in Louisiana. Yes, the best school district in Louisiana and the world, Caddo. All right. So I was gonna do a timer, but we want to run out of time. So, okay. So let's go back. Oh no. Okay. All right. All right, which form is used to ensure educators create student-centered and district-aligned IEPs? And of course, you all saw it already. Which one is it? Which form is used to ensure educators create student-centered and district-aligned IEPs? And of course, that's the IEP compliance checklist. All right? And you can use the timer there. That's for our use, for future use. Okay. Let's look at our practice. So we talked about the forms. So now we need to dive into the actual practice of how do we create these IEPs. We talked about what it is, who needs to be in attendance for the IEP meeting, but now we need to have just a little bit of practice. I wanted to just give you just a snapshot on today. Not everything, but just a snapshot so that you can get started on your preparation for the fall, so you'll be familiar with this. So we wanted to do a bit of a scavenger hunt to kind of look and see what we need for the IEP, all right? So the first thing, when we go on our scavenger hunt, the question is, how do you access your student's IEP? How do I access my students' IEPs online? We have a website called SIR, and you will be assigned your login information in the fall, but it is called SIR. SIR allows special education personnel at the school, LEA, and student and state level, at the state level, the ability to collect, report, and process information on students. Then we have, here is the SIR system address, or web address, all right, there. And then I told you already that you will receive that information. So this is the website that you will go to access your student IEPs online. I remember the days where we had to actually use carbon paper. We had to write through it, and my handwriting was horrible. I kid you not, my handwriting was horrible. I would have to start over, tear up, start over. But we have so been enriched within the last few years. Now we have it, everything online, that we can type up the information there and have it at our disposal. Let's look at, as we go through this scavenger hunt, we talked about that general student information page. This is the page that we look at to see where exactly the information is about that student. So if I walk into the IEP meeting, I'm a parent, I am an instructor, I am regular education teacher, I am a school-based or district personnel who walks into that meeting. We look at the general student information page to give us an overview of where that student is. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to my Google Drive, and Google Drive is one of a teacher's best friends. So here is a blank copy of an IEP. And again, this is from 2019, so this is going to change. But I'll upload this to the Google Classroom, so you'll have a copy there. You can look at it. But here's how the general student information page looked like. You see here, you have your, you'll place the exceptionalities here, and the state will automatically, SIR, which is the website we talked about a few minutes ago, will automatically generate the exceptionality in this information up here. So what you will plug in, most of this information will be plugged in right here. You will type in the IEP participants. And one of the forms that we did not talk about was the parent notification form. And we'll talk about that in our next session, the parent notification form. We talked about how many notices do you send home within how many days? We mentioned earlier. How many notices? I want to see if you remember. 3 notices within 10 days. So, and also we notify district personnel. So you always want to email them and let them know when the meeting is taking place so that they'll be aware of the IEP meeting. So we have here the IEP participants. We have the general information about the student, the strengths, the parent concerns, which we write at the time of the meeting. And when we write, if you write anything in, we always use a blue pen. We put the evaluation results here. Those are the assessments that we use to determine their exceptionality. Also, we use the district assessments that we use also to determine. One of the assessments that we use is ISTEEP. So we would put that information in there to let us know where that student is academically in their IEP areas, such as reading and math. It gives us an indicator of where they are. And then we progress monitor to see if it changes and if what we're implementing is working as well. So we put that information there, and their exceptionality. So we have the academic developmental needs, what areas, whether it's math or reading, we put that in this area right here. Then we put statewide results if they're taking the LEAP, if they're taking if they're 3rd grade and up, they are taking a statewide assessment. So 3rd grade and up, we put that information in there. If they don't, we put not applicable due to age. Progress or lack of progress. We place the grades here. Okay, we put the grades there. We kind of give a general synopsis of how they're progressing in the general education curriculum, because we need to know that, because we want them to be in that least restrictive environment, but we also need to know how they're progressing. And then we have some other areas. We have behavior, which you will work with. If your student has a behavior issue, you will work with the behavior intervention specialist, that's the BIS. You will work with them to place that information there. If not, it will be a general statement. If their student is being successful based on the school-wide rules and expectations, we will put a notice in there. English learner, if they're an English learner, then English is their primary language. If not, we will put a notation there. Communication needs, if the student is receiving communication services via the speech department, we will put that in there. And also, if the student has NE, if they're receiving Braille or that sort, we would meet with the vision and hearing personnel to write that. And then assistive technology, which most of our students use it. And if they are non-LEAP Connect, most of the time they may use a calculator of that sort. So we will put information there. And finally, remember when we mentioned the health needs, the health screening form, if that student has health concerns, we would place it here. I wanted you all to see that, okay? Now let's go back to there. And so the components, we went through all those. So when we look at IEP planning, we need to look at the continuous learning, which is at the state website. We are, due to COVID-19, we do have some unfinished learning, and you will be offered some courses. You need to take it for math and also ELA and other curriculum personnel to see what gaps need to be filled in the fall, and that's continuous learning. Also, we have some Google features that you can go to. You can click on this. I'm not going to go into that due to time, but you can click on that to see exactly what is continuous learning. Also, you need to go and sign up. Many of our courses this summer are on demand for your particular curriculum, whether it's social studies, science. Go and look at the courses for your particular grade level so that you can know what unfinished learning needs to take place, need to be covered and targeted in the fall. Then you have your standards here and your ELA connectors. ELA is my area. I love ELA, and a great website is Caddo ELA. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you go to the Caddo ELA if you are a reading teacher, and probably most of you are. I think I went to somewhere different. Yes, okay. Right here, Caddo ELA. You have the guidebooks pacing, then you have grades, K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8. You can click on, you can look at the pacing. You have everything academic standards for ELA. You can click on all that to see what exactly is needed for Caddo ELA. Here's where you go to need, if you need some assistance with that, you go there for that, all right? Now, of course, I've talked a whole lot, and now we definitely need to dive into the practice. So I'm gonna give you an assignment. I want you to look at how to complete the GSI page. Here is how to complete that right there. And I'll put some information in the Google Classroom, the directions. Also, you can go to DOEC instruction, how to complete the GSI page. And these slides will be in there. You can click on those links. But I want to give you an assignment, okay? When you receive your IEP folder, I'm not giving you an IEP folder, but this is a student. This is Jason Caddo, a fictional student, okay? We're gonna make a copy here. We made a copy so that everybody can have their own living, working document, okay? So I want you to read this information about Jason Caddo. Let's see if we're going to increase it, because I want you to be able to see it. Right. We'll decrease it just a little, right? So you see here, Jason Caddo is 11 years old. He's a 6th grade student at ABC Elementary Middle. Here are his grades. Those are his LEAP scores, okay? 2020, all right? See the magic of Google, you can make corrections there as you need, okay? He achieved 1 of 3 goals, all right? You can read through this. I'm not gonna read it all for you, but there's the statewide information there. There's the parent information, all right? We put some things that he's able to do right there in regards to ELA, because that's gonna be his goal, ELA, all right? We put his evaluation information right here. All right, let's keep going. The iSteep information. All right, this is iSteep information. All right, so this is a little information about Jason Caddo. So you all are going to create the GSI page, that general student information page, and you're gonna pull from here to create that, all right? So you have your IEP template. This is going to be your best friend. So before I show you the IEP template, this document is gonna show you how to, remember we looked at that GSI page, we looked at the blank copy of it. When you fill that in, you need to know the verbiage of what to put in there. So I'm getting ready to show you a document that was created by Mr. Nino Akamo and Ms. Cassandra English, some of my friends. And this is something that they compiled and worked on to create it for teachers to use to create their IEPs and to know the verbiage. Now, before I open this document, we don't want to see cookie cutter IEPs where we have the same information that's on this document. This only serves as a guide, okay? I want you to engrave that. I want you to engraft that into your mind that this is a template. So we don't want to see this on everybody's IEP. This is only to serve as a guide. So let me go there right now and show you this. You can make a copy for your own use. And for some of you, you may not have Google access. If you email me, I can get you these documents that you need to work on this, okay? I can get you the documents and send it to you. If you email me, I'll give you my email information at the end. But some of you may have the Google access to Google Docs, and you will have this. But if you don't, I can get it to you, okay? All right, so here's the IEP template that you will use. So for the general information, when you write about Jason Caddo, the student is a blank 11-year-old student, currently attending ABC Middle School. You'll put whether he is inclusion resource right there. Also strengths. You'll look at that the Jason Caddo's evaluation. According to the evaluation dated, you'll put that information in there. You'll look at their evaluation results. You go down a little bit. And that's the ISTEEP. Also, you will look at this statement right here, academic developmental needs, to see what skills do he need to master? What does he need to do? Now, the statewide assessment results, that's like the LEAP. So you'll put a statement in that area, okay? This is the template that I'm gonna show you where you're gonna put all this information at, all right? Progress or lack of expected progress, all right, there. And you remember we talked about the grades that students receive. They have deficits in whatever area, and look at their area of need. Most of the time it's reading, math, and written expression for most of our students. And then you're gonna put what things help for that student to be successful in this section. So I want you just to concentrate on the general student information page, strengths, evaluation results, academic, statewide, progress or lack of progress. Don't worry about the behavior and all of that. We'll do that at a later date, okay? So I want you all just to concentrate on those and practicing writing these. And again, if you do not have access to Google or access to this, you can always email me and I'll give you that information. So here's your homework. You're gonna access the mock IEP template, and I want you to write a GSI page. The GSI information, you have general information, strengths, parent concerns. If you look at Jason Caddo's information, I want you to fill all this in and send it to me, okay? So I can look at it to help you start your journey. So I'm gonna help you. I'll look at it, give you a review, and get that back to you, okay? You're gonna complete that information. Look at your template that I gave you. You have what you need right here. You're gonna look at this mock IEP for Jason Caddo, the template that I gave you. You're gonna use this. You're gonna look at this and this to help you create the mock IEP template, okay? Not too bad for a summer. And just a little bit I wanted to mention, we mentioned Act 833. This is the promotion based on IEP team decision. Some of our students significantly, they have some significant issues that cause them to have low scores on the LEAP test, or they may have grades that are not, that are dwindling based on their exceptionality. So as an IEP team, we can meet and make a decision to determine that student's promotion. So that's called Act 833. We'll talk about that more in our next session, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. But that is Act 833. We'll put that statement. We didn't put one for Jason Caddo, but for other students, we can use that to help us determine that student's promotion. But I wanted you to be aware of that. All right, so your next steps, I want you to start working on your mock IEP, complete the general student information section. Then I want you to review the pertinent forms and look for updates in July 2020 for the DOEC instruction. Go to their website to look for that. And also we'll have an evaluation in KickUp that you can complete, a code that you need to complete, and an evaluation that you'll have to complete in order to receive credit for this course, because since it's on demand, you'll have to complete that, but we'll have that information for you in KickUp. All right. Hopefully you all enjoyed the session on today. Again, we talked about the purpose, we talked about the planning, we talked about the participants, and all of those things in our session. So if you need me, you can contact me at 318-595-0579. Also, you can email me at ewilliams@caddoschools.org. I think I left the E out, but it's ewilliams@caddoschools.org. It's ewilliams@caddoschools.org. Thank you for participating today, and come back to our next session, IEP Basics 2. Make sure you look at that session. It's on demand. Thank you. Hello, we are ecstatic that you joined us for our learning experience on today. And we need you to do 3 things. First, complete the evaluation mentioned at the end of the session. Secondly, we need you to implement the strategies presented, because that will enhance your instruction. And finally, we want you to like, send, and share this information with your colleagues. Nelson Mandela, an icon and world leader, once said, "Education is the most powerful tool we can use to change the world." So go out and be a world changer. Thank you, and join us for future sessions.